last time we went over the subject, we talked about withdrawing the senses. And I don't think we really went into it. I just talked in general. You might want to come and get me. You have a copy already.
I think I do. Should be in my binder. It's in my car. You have a copy there? You got one.
So, Pratahara is the fourth. It's the fourth yoga, Raja Yoga limb. And it means to withdraw the senses. Withdrawal of the senses. Now, before we even get into that, we have to understand how they look at this. And the way they look at it, the way the yogis look at it, is that they classify the human senses differently from normal, in the normal way that the scientists or the medical field call senses. They normally the medical industry or the science, the medical science, say that we have 5 senses. The yogis say we have 10 senses, and we have 10 sense organs. Now, you have to understand the way they look at it. In other words, they don't see this. They look at when the yogi look at something, they look at the real you is spirit, which is really unmanifested. All right? And then they have soul, which is manifested. Right? It's a manifested expression of spirit. Then the soul creates this thing called consciousness. You may think consciousness is you, but it's not. The real manifested you is soul, because soul is above consciousness. See? And because soul is connected to spirit. So soul, the soul does not necessarily have this thing called consciousness from day one. Because why? It has manifested awareness. And this awareness is the thing that allows it to connect itself to the all, to the spirit. Right? So when the soul creates this consciousness, it needs a conduit in order to connect to all the different realms of existence. And so if you look at the chakras, right? We have the crown chakra, we have the Christ chakra, or the third eye, right? And we have the throat chakra. All of these are points of consciousness or realms of existence. So what the soul does, the soul creates a consciousness by linking itself to all of these. So the soul links itself to these realms of existence, or these points, or these vortex centers of power, which is vortex centers of consciousness, right? So once it does that, it needs to create what's called, well, it already has it needs to break up this awareness. Now, this awareness has already been limited by what? Consciousness. So the awareness is limited by consciousness, right? So now, in order to limit itself again so that it can have direct experience, right? Because that's what the soul is going for. The soul is going for direct experience with different realms of existence. And you have the etheric realms, right? Which is considered the higher realms. And then you have the astral realms, right? Which are subtle, higher and lower realms, right? Because the astral realms, you have high and low astral realms. And then the physical realm, which is the dense realms, so-called realms. Which is really the zero ground level for experience, for limited experience, okay? And it's the middle ground for all the realms, for all the lower and the higher realms too. So you have, in order to bring about a greater limitation, so that you can have the greatest impact of experience, the soul creates, the soul divide the consciousness into different segments, right? So we know that the soul divides it into a super level state of consciousness, right?
Do you mean the subconscious?
No. It divides it into a super level of consciousness, right? And then it further divides it into a subconscious level of consciousness, right? and then it creates what you use during your so-called basic awakening state, a conscious mind. Now this is subconscious mind. And superconscious mind, right? Now, in order to experience life, it had to create this thing called, it had to divide the awareness into senses, right? And those senses are what we talked about is what? Sight, right?
Sound.
Hearing, right?
Smell.
Smell,
Taste.
taste, and touch. Now, it had to, now these senses, all these senses, it created these senses, it divided the awareness up into collecting information in a division, and that did what? That limited, right? That brought about a greater limitation, right? Because why? The soul is trying to gain experience on various levels of existence, right? So it cannot have this state of all awareness and gain necessary experience with the other realms of existence. So it splits its awareness up into these senses. Now, each level had to have, you have a physical level, right? You have an astral level, and you have a etheric level. Now, all of this can be done, I mean, I can divide it up into 10 different levels if I wanted. But I'm doing it the simplest way so that you can understand it. These different levels, in each one of these different levels, a sense organ had to be developed. You understand? So you needed a sense organ. What do I mean by sense organ? Anybody?
The physical aspect of it?
Yeah, the eyes,
Eyes.
right? The ears,
The nose.
the nose, the tongue, right? And the skin, the touch, right? So those sense organs, those sense organs are connected to the senses. The senses are connected to the consciousness, right? The consciousness is connected to the soul, and the soul is connected to the spirit. You understand? So that's the way the yogis look at it. So they understand that really none of this is a part of the real thing. And the real thing is spirit and soul. Okay? So that's what you have to come to understand. Now, of course, the astral, you have astral eyes, astral ears, astral nose, astral tongue, astral skin. Same thing with etheric. Right? Now, coming back to this, these are the centers of consciousness. These are the lower centers of consciousness, and these are the higher senses of consciousness. You have high and you have low. And you even have lower senses below the base of the spine, which is more insanity, madness, and animal. Okay? Those are those senses. So, but we're going to deal with the senses, we're going to deal with the conscious level here. Now with the superconscious mind, because at all times, you have you're dominated or bombarded by higher levels of mind, right? At all times, you have an interchange of higher levels of mind. Where do you have this interchange at? Anyone know? I went over this with you guys before, right? Where do you have this interchange at?
Where we communicate with higher levels of mind.
Yeah, it's always, there's an interchange with higher levels of mind with you at all times. Anyone know?
The world?
Huh?
It's like
Who said it?
the psychic centers.
The psychic centers. So let's imagine that this is the psychic center, right? You constantly got this interchange of mind that goes out and goes in, right? This, let's say, this is the front, this is the back. But there's always an interchange of this higher levels of mind, where you're communicating with the all, which is the soul and the spirit is ever connected to the all, right? And that is taken care of, or the higher self of you, which is the superconscious mind, is aware of that interchange, all right? And it is the supreme comic Lord of you, okay? Now, the superconscious mind creates the subconscious mind, which becomes that part of you that makes sure that the law is always carried out, okay? The subconscious mind of you will never go against the law of karma. And that part of you, it is the functioning part of you. And it is constantly also aware of the interchange of this, of mind in the chakras. Because this is your real consciousness now. Consciousness is not in the brain. The consciousness is just the brain is just an instrument to allow consciousness to flow through. Okay? Or it's a transmitting receiver. Alright, so the subconscious mind, it does what? It takes care of functions and actions within the body. It gives the action and reaction. It creates or manipulates and proportions the energy in order to allow action and reaction to take place. And it always follows the law. Always follow the law. It never goes outside of the law of karma. The next part of the mind, right, is the conscious mind. The conscious mind is that part of the mind which that you are using right now in order to perceive this physical world, in order to have an exchange of information on the realm of existence that you were on. If you were on if you're on the physical plane, then you're using the conscious mind in the now. If you're on the astral plane, you're using the conscious mind in the now. If you're on the etheric plane, you're using the conscious mind or probably the superconscious mind as well in the now. Okay? In order to communicate with outside world. So those are the three phases or the three aspects of mind, let's say. And it perceives and communicates with the outside world through the sense organs. The yogis also said that you not only have those five senses, but you also have senses in the feet, in the anus, in the genitals, in the hands, and your speech is a sense as well. And if you just take time to think about this, it makes sense. It makes absolute sense. Because why? Because if you perceive something, right, and you want to know more about that, what do? If you see an object and you want to know more about it, what do you usually do?
Study it.
You pick it up. So this is a sense. You grasp it. And by grasping it, it does what? It gives you information about it. You know whether it's cold. You know whether it's hot. You know the texture of it. You know whether it's soft, smooth, rough, or whatever. And that's a sense. But without you being able to use the sense organ called the hands and the ability to grasp it, you will never know it. You will only be able to look. You'll only be able to look at it. You'll only be able to observe it. In a sense, the way the satellites do when they land on Mars, right? Or any other planet. The scientists use their sight and previous knowledge of how the terrain look on this earth, previous knowledge that they gained from this earth in order to speculate on what the conditions are, right? But they can't grasp it, but they're using information from what they grasp on this earth to compare it to Mars. So the grasping in the hands is a sense organ. It's one of the senses. It's one of the senses. Feet, same thing. Your feet is a sense because normally when you go, I don't know if you travel a lot. I traveled a lot one time in my life, and one of the things I used to love doing is once I get somewhere new, I take my shoes off so I could feel the ground or the grass or whatever, wherever I'm at. So it gives you a sense of where you are. You pick up information. So the feet is a sense organ. It's a sense organ. Same thing with the genitals. Same thing. You have the same sense reaction, with the genital, with your genitals. Same thing with the anus, same thing. Your mind, your consciousness is sensitive there. It's a sense organ. It tells you things about yourself. In fact, you can see it in animals. They still use that. Smell is like the number one thing with an animal, with most animals, and their anus is too, because they look towards that even when they try to communicate with another animal. Just watch them. So these are sense organs that that we need to be aware of, and those are things that we need to disconnect ourselves with when we withdrawing the senses. When we begin to withdraw the senses, we need to one by one disconnect our consciousness from that in order to move into the higher states of consciousness or mind. Okay? Gave a little diagram here to show you, to talk about each sense organ, and just a brief introduction to it so that you'll understand it. Now, how did the soul connect this how did the soul connect itself physically, mechanically to these organs? It did it through the nadis. It did it through the nadis. The nadis, we're told, begins here at the base of the spine where Kundalini is, right? Everybody heard of Kundalini? Right? Kundalini is the primary life force of the body. It is the vehicle of consciousness for the body. And this Kundalini is at the base of the spine. The soul shaped and molded this thing called Shakti, which is a universal power that was released at the beginning of time by God, or the absolute, whatever you want to call the supreme being. They spoke the word, and the word was God. The power of Kundalini, or the power of Shakti, was released at that time. The soul, when the soul was brought into manifestation by an aspect of God called spirit, or the divine spark within you, it took this Shakti power and concentrated it and moved it down this thing called the Brahmanati, or Shushuna, all the way down to the base of the spine. And there, it molded and shaped the Shakti power into this thing called Kundalini. And Kundalini released a sound, the same way the Absolute released a sound in order to create the universe and the galaxies and the solar systems and the microbes like us. The Kundalini being the vehicle of consciousness that the soul just created, the soul created this consciousness, and it released a sound. And that sound produced the nadis, which is nothing but a flow of energy, positive, negative, and neutral energy that moves back and forth and wraps itself around and through the various chakras, the major chakras, and all 108 chakras within the auric field of man. You have 108 chakras. So this complex matrix that the nadis create is said to be 242,000 pathways of energy flow that wraps itself in and out all the way until it reaches the Christ chakra, where it terminates in the head and produce a conduit for the senses. And that's what this here is. It connects to the ears, the nose, the mouth, the throat, see? And it creates the head senses, okay? And that's how you perceive the world. And the command center for that is the Christ center. All the nadis terminate at the Christ chakra, or the third eye. And that's why they call the third eye the command center. Because all the signals of everything is controlled here. It must go here and back down. Here and back down. So all your senses is connected there. So one of the reasons why you want to disconnect your senses in order to create a pathway back to that state of consciousness, which is a super state of consciousness. Okay? Any questions so far?
Do the physical sense organs, or just the sense organs in general, for all the bodies, do they correspond to how we, or how a particular prana is interpreted or interacted with? Like say for example, like dhyana permeates the entire body, and is it our sense of touch, our skin, which covers the entire body? Is that the way we interact with dhyana or interpret dhyana or consciousness?
I don't understand what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to understand the way that the five pranas, the five minor and major pranas, particularly the major pranas, but the five major senses. I was trying to see if there's a correlation between, like say, since skin, our touch sense is used our entire body.
Mm-hmm.
Is that corresponds to like how dhyana, it travels throughout the entire body, or how like our sight is with our eyes, and that may correspond to.
Look on here. What did I say here? Where's touch at?
Physical touching is the skin, the heart chakra.
The heart chakra. Doesn't it make sense?
So that prana that's mostly in the chest region, that's what's responsible for touch. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, yeah. Because in the ancient Upanishads, it says that Vayu reach out and touch the whole universe. And Vayu is what? Air. It has the qualities of air. It's not necessarily air, but it has the qualities of air. The Vayu Bhutas, which is the cosmic element of the universe, which configures this energy that we use as breath or air. It says that it expands itself throughout the universe and touches everything. So and then you think about it. Who here know a little bit about medical science?
Very little.
Well, let's look at it. Just so you can understand. And this is ancient knowledge. And how did these people have this? Because they were so primitive. Cells produce what?
More cells.
Huh?
Tissue.
Tissue or blood, right? And blood produce what? Tissues,
Tissue.
right? And tissues produce what?
Organs.
Organs. And organs produce what?
Organ system.
Systems, right? And systems are what? Living, right? Beings. Which could be human or animal, right? So, cells produce blood. Blood is pumped from where? From the heart. Right? Blood is oxygenated from where?
The lungs.
Huh?
Through the lungs.
Through the lungs, right? Right? By what? The heart. Because the heart does what? It takes it takes the oxygen, the carbonated blood, and does what? Pushes it out through the respiratory system to exhale it, right? And it pushes it into the lungs, right? So to do what? To be reoxygenated. So the heart does all of that. So in the ancient time, when in their Upanishads, when they said that this value touches the world, you know, that's what it was talking about. It was also talking about our little universe called the human body. See? And if you go down and look at each one of them, you'll notice that it was correct. It was absolutely correct. So it correlates with the chakras and the flow of energy, whether it's the bhutas or even the pranas, right?
Mhm.
You will see that it correlates with the makeup of the body, of the physical body. Okay? You'll notice that. All of them does. All of them do. So did I answer your question?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So any more questions? So this is, I don't need to go too much into this, the head center, right? Everybody understand that's simple, that the nadis come up to the head center, and that's what happens. Even with the mouth, that's the power of Kundalini, rising up, manifesting itself as consciousness. All right? Get the emails. Okay, they got on it. All right. Now let's look at the last slide. They didn't get, I emailed those slides out. Did you email it to everybody?
These?
Yeah. Last week.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I did. I thought I emailed.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, you sent it to my NPHC. That's fine.
So the soul creates an auric field of substance. Let's go back. The soul creates an auric field of substance that possesses a state of all awareness. I kind of went over this already. Any questions on how this works? Huh?
This one?
Yeah, this one. I kind of went over it when I opened up. Everybody kind of understand it? If you understand it, I'm not going to go because I went over it already.
This is, yeah, this is basically what you just
Yeah.
diagrammed right here.
Okay. Now, is that it? So, the disconnection of these senses, you will have, and this, you know, this is where everybody gets it wrong too. This is the thing about it. Most people who don't study this, they'll get it so wrong. And they'll tell you to go blank your mind, right? When you go to meditate, right? Everybody heard that, go blank your mind. That's the worst thing you can do. You don't blank your mind. You don't blank your mind. That creates a negative condition by blanking your mind, yeah.
Why do people recommend doing that then?
Because they don't know. They don't know. And if you study the ancient teachings, there's nowhere in there where they're gonna tell you to go blank your mind. Okay? They just don't know. If we go to the lead, to most of the teachers in the field who have proven themselves and had many, many years of experience, they tell you do not blank your mind. They'll never recommend blanking the mind because creates a negative condition. This is different, and this is where people get it mixed up at. They think that withdrawing the senses is blinking the mind. It's not blinking the mind. Don't blink the mind. All right? Blinking the mind is like leaving your door open at night and going to sleep. And you're in the middle of Brooklyn. You know, that's what that is. So don't do it. Okay? It's dangerous. So you can have disconnected entities come and possess your body, do all type of things to you and blinking the mind. So you don't do that. So what you do is in concentration, which leads to contemplation, and concentration and contemplation together leads to meditation. It's a very, very active state of you controlling the mind, right? It's of you controlling the mind. And one of the exercises you use is to, one by one, disconnect yourself from the senses. And you can do that by closing the eyes. Some people it works closing the eyes. And you don't pay attention to the outside images, right? The next thing you can do is concentrate on something within the mind so hard that the ears, you lose awareness of what's going on around you. Then you slowly, slowly connect yourself to the mental body, right? That's part of your aura. And by disconnecting yourself from each sense that we just mentioned today, the sense of taste, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the sense of hearing, you disconnect yourself from that. The sense of touch, one by one, until you totally go into the pure mental state of yourself, of your auric body, of the mental body that's within the auric body. And then you begin to even disconnect yourself from that in order to go to a higher state. See? But it's not blinking the mind. It is not blinking, it is not blanking the mind. Blanking the mind is a negative state. Remember, concentration and contemplation is an active state. It's not a state of nothingness. That's not where you want to go. Okay? So that's, and there's many different exercises in order to do that. There's many different exercises that you can look up in order to do it. Pranayama is an exercise. You should use pranayama. There's, which in the science of breath of Yoga Ramacharaka, or the science of breath of Ramaprasa, which is on our website. So that's Pratyahara. That's what it means. It means to withdraw the senses. And when they're talking about the senses, it's all 10 senses, not just the 5 senses. Right? And it's understanding that once you get through all these layers, you will come face to face with the awareness of the soul. Okay? And when you become aware of the soul, then you will be aware of the spirit. And then the soul can be bathed in the light of the spirit. And that's your ultimate goal. Whether it takes this life or the next 10 lives, that's the journey that you want to travel. If you go back to the ancient teachings, it talks about the dissolution of consciousness. That's what it's talking about. Anybody heard that? The dissolution of consciousness? That's what it's talking about. Okay? Is ultimately the highest state of this is meditation, where you where the conscious mind falls back into the subconscious mind. The conscious mind, the blended subconscious mind and conscious mind go back into the superconscious mind. Then the superconscious mind absorbs itself, goes back into the soul. And then you're in this soul state of consciousness where you're connected to the all. And then the soul is bathed in the light of the spirit. Okay? And then you're in true meditation. True meditation. And then that is a conscious death state where you connect yourself to the all. You connect yourself to the all, to the world, to all life on earth. You're connected to it. All life in the solar system, you're connected to it. Through mind. Okay? Through mind. Before we close out, I want to go over, just talk briefly about this. Everybody got this, right? So you understand how mind works a little bit. Mind is an energy. Okay? Mind is everywhere. Mind is not contained within you. It's an energy. The same way we look at prana, which is a cosmic energy, mind is a cosmic energy too. Okay? The difference between these two cosmic energies, right, is that they take on different jobs. Okay? Mind molds prana. Okay? That's one of the big differences of these energies. And now, there's a universal mind energy. It's pure. Right? And then there's another cosmic, I'm going to use the word cosmic mind energy, because it's still universal to a certain extent. That's distorted. So the thing is that we want to, this is where most of us are. And this is a sea of mind that we created for ourselves, in other words. So whether you realize this or not, it's true. Everything in this room is a product of mind. All right? This chair, this table, this bottle, it all originated in a state of mind. It came from a design from someone's mind, okay, which worked hard to produce it here on the physical plane so that all of us can see. This building, that camera, the computer, all came from mind. And the problem is that it was perceived through the senses and sense organs and bodies that is unpure and distorted. So therefore, it only functions on a particular level. If you were able to take the items that we have here on earth and try to design them on a different realm of existence, it probably wouldn't work the way you think it would, the way it should work. Because why? The pressures of karma is different there. It's different. The function of it would not have the so-called great resolution that you think that it should have, that it would have here. In other words, if we took a TV, a HD TV with superb resolution, and we were able to take that technology on one of the higher realms and reproduce it there, the resolution will look dull to anything they have there, because it was perceived through the manas, which is mind, that's been distorted, right, by man's thought, by man's narrow thought. Okay? So mind molds and shapes things, and the state of your consciousness is the thing that limits everything around you. Okay? So if we make up, let's say if we get ready to go do a task, and day one you say, it's not gonna work. It's impossible. You just condition the state of all your efforts, right? You're gonna move in that direction where it's not gonna turn out right, because why? You have created the mental condition the mental conditions and environment in order to work with it. You did that. But if you move into that with sincerity and with the plan of action, that where you can see the end result and you know that it's gonna work, then what you have did, you have ensured success. You have ensured success. You know, you must understand that if you make room for failure, then failure will happen. Simple as that. So you create the conditions. You create your mental conditions in which you want to live in. If you start off on any task, on anything you're going for, and you place in your mind that you're not going to succeed, you will not succeed. You will not. You will do exactly what you want to do, and that's fail. But if you create in your mind that I am going to succeed, and this is how I'm going to succeed, because I'm going to lay out a plan of action, I'm going to take step 1, step 2, all the way to the step that I call success, then you will succeed. Because you've created the conditions, you've created the pathway in order to succeed. So in yoga, all through yoga, that's what yoga does, is create the pathway for success by reconfiguring the subtle energies within you, within your mental framework, which will have an effect on your subtle astral and etheric framework, which will have an effect on your physical framework, because it all trickles down, okay? And that's what all these different exercises does. And when you look at the 8 limbs of yoga, you'll notice that. The first one is yama, which is control. Take control over your thought and actions. The next one is niyama. You place a spiritual, moral balance to the control that you just brought about, right? The next one is asana, which is you place your body and mind in a framework of what? In a position of power, right? That's what mudra yoga is, positions of power. So then the fourth one is the pratahara, with you withdraw your senses from the from consciousness, from the senses, right? In order to do what? To connect yourself to the higher powers of the soul, right? And then from there you go into pranayama, which leads you into the control of this power that's regulated and forced through the body by the soul 21,600 times a day. The soul repeats the mantra of life, right? And you want to connect yourself to that through pranayama. And then from there, you go into, okay, now I have this control. I've been taught to control prana. I'm going to concentrate this prana so that I can bore my way through to the soul and spirit. And that's what it's all about. Concentration, contemplation, and eventually meditation. That's the 8 limbs of yoga. It tells you, it shows you how to create this mental image of success. That's what it's about. And that's in every aspect of life, no matter what task you go to. If you, Dr. King said, if you make room for failure, then you're going to have failure. You will have failure. But if you make room for success, that's the only thing you can have is success. And that's what understanding mind, this mind energy, we pull this mind energy into us and we shape and we mold it to what we want it to be. And once we create that mental image, the prana must flow. Must flow. Because the only way mind energy can operate is by the use of prana. And prana and mind creates the design, and prana feels the design and make it into matter, into action, into motion. That's what it does. And that's what the ancient ones told us. That life is all about molding mind. I mean using mind energy to mold and shape prana. That's what it's all about. Okay? Any questions? If there's no questions, that's it for today.
When we withhold the breath, when we hold the breath,
Mm-hmm.
and what happens when we stop breathing? What happens to that mantra the soul's repeating?
What do you mean?
That 21,600 times that the soul repeats every day in order for us to
Can
breathe.
you increase the Kundalini within the body? That's how you control it. That's how you bring about control. You understand?
So we're reversing that instead of the soul speaking outwards, we're taking it inwards.
No. You what you're doing, you're taking control. You're taking control of the life force within the body. And by retaining the breath, you take control of the breath. In other words.
Okay.
You understand? So if something's on autopilot, you take it off of autopilot and you begin to do what? Manually control it. Then you have the power. You, the soul, is still, remember, you're still the soul. The soul is not separate. But you make a conscious effort to take it off of autopilot and to control it yourself, thereby increasing tremendous positive karma. Tremendous positive karma. And go back and concentrate and contemplate over that. Okay? Tremendous. So it's all almost the same, it's the same concept of Operation Sunbeam or Operation Prayer Power. See? You know, the autopilot for us is the great cosmic masters, the spiritual hierarchy. And now we have chose to adopt the mission that Dr. George King gave us and conduct these energy manipulations. So what are we doing? We're taking it off of autopilot, just a little fraction of it. And the tremendous positive karma is created by that, because you have relieved these elevated beings of a task, the same way you're doing with your bodies. When you practice pranayama and you retain the breath, right? You're allowing the lower aspects of you to merge with the higher aspects of you, and at that point, at that second, at those few minutes, what you're doing is you are allowing the soul to manifest itself through you in a conscious state by controlling that breath. So the Kundalini increase, right? The negative karma decrease, the positive karma increase. You know, you can understand what I'm saying. All right? So that's the great effects of pranayama.
And going back to you were saying how taking an HD TV here and bringing it to the higher realm won't work as well, if at all. Is this the same principle applied to when Dr. King visualized the radiator in the higher realms and how beautiful and magnificent it was, but it took so much hard work for him to kind of, I guess, invent it or recreate it here because of the different mind.
Think about it. Also, you can think about this. If you take an old radio, right, from 1920 and bring it up here in 2014 and look at the material that it was made out of. It was made out of what? Dense, gross material, right? You know, heavy, hard. It heats up, you know, because the radios back then had tubes, you know. They had these vacuum tubes, and they get bright, and you couldn't keep it on too long. You might think it might burn up. You couldn't have no paper next to it, you know. So it was totally different than the radio today. Your cell phone is a radio today. You know, so you know, it's the more advanced you become, the more refined the materials become. So when you exit this physical world and go to the etheric world, in your etheric body, or even your astral body, you'll find that the material is more refined. So to go get the same material that you will have here on this dense physical plane as a part of the subtle plane, it wouldn't make any sense, because the reception and all that would be totally different. One of the first things you notice when you begin to develop your psychic abilities is that when you close your eyes to see psychically, right, you'll notice that the grass is greener, right? The light from the sun is brighter.
It's more vibrant.
Yeah, and all the different colors around have a richer color than you see with your physical eye. You know, so automatically you know that there's a difference, you know, in perception. You know, in the psychic, when you look through your psychic eyes, you know, so and even in states of projection, when you move between the realms, you'll notice that when you step out of your physical body and look at this physical world through your astral eye, it looks totally different. You know, so of course, it's more refined on the subtle realms than what it is here. It's much more refined. Any other questions? close out with the prayer.